Okay, guys, I'm going to go over a little bit about refinement. I started recording this, but record the other screen, but I'm not very far along in it, so I don't think it'll matter too much. But you can see what I've done here. I'm just starting to work over some of this stuff. And this would basically be my first round of refinement. So if you look here, I'm starting to indicate a little tread on this tire. I want this. Maybe it's got the old school tail lights. Then I'm going to put a line here just to break it up. Maybe I'll put like a little, or one of those little hazard sign things. There might be some little hazard idea there. These are probably going to get a little bit of trim in them. Now I can draw through this because I would put the type and the bubble and all that stuff on a layer over it. This little guy here, this squirrel or whatever, he doesn't seem to be on the same ground plane because these guys would be way down here, their feet. But I think here, because the panel below it is coming up, I think I would have him sort of looking up. And not seeing all of him. Maybe even less of that. You know, and then I could have his tail here. However you want to handle that. Head's tilted a little too much. There we go. Then here, you know, this would probably get a value at some point, this little stripe. This interior right here would probably start to get a little value. Now, this really depends how I'm drawing this. It depends on, like, is this going to be, am I going to do a drawing like this? Am I going to take this into Illustrator? Am I going to, wherever I'm going to take it, I got to think about that from a, then I put this rabbit in front of my little steps there. I might even have one guy, I don't know if I would or not, maybe I see the back of his foot and he's walking in. Maybe. It might get too confusing. This tire probably don't need tread or anything because it's too far away. And I'm just, the reason I'm doing that is I just want to block it in and get some ideas about where my values are. This would probably be a dark value. Gives me a nice dark value right in the foreground. And then I start thinking of my line quality. There's my light source right up there. This could get pretty dark in here. That'll pull it forward. And then under here you're going to get, you know, your shadow being cast by the whole thing itself. You got to make sure that the tail lights I put on here don't start to read as the headlights, which right now they are a little bit. So I might do a little more modern version of it maybe, and because some of them wrap around sort of like that, and that's the shape of the tail light, so you might want to do that. Just want to make sure, or I don't know, maybe it doesn't matter if that's the front. Let's see. Now, these guys are all going to, you know, same thing, but you got to really plot this now. You got to really plot out and refine all these shapes, okay? Maybe does he have a collar on, or do they, that's right, they live in like a quasi-human world. I might put these feet where I'm seeing underneath them. That looks a little goofier. Maybe his other arms are like that, and he's, yelping or whatever. These have to get really refined because it's a mechanical thing. And I don't mean overdoing them, but just, it's got to be believable and then the perspective has to sort of follow each other. A lot of times I think these things have things like that, like these little pipes or whatever. And then here, and then there's going to be some kind of, that perspective is off. Usually I just draw through like that because this isn't going to be my final pass. Sometimes they have some sort of just industrial kind of stuff on here. And then maybe, you could do some overlap where I have the poles that are in there that people hang on to. Maybe I get that. Same thing here. Just things like that, okay? I might have this monkey, since now I just put the poles in there, maybe he's hanging from the because you're saying it's practically a zoo. I might have him hanging from because that overhead pole goes overhead, so it's perfect for like a goofy monkey thing. I like this overlapping other stuff. You'd have to see how they meet the floor. I don't know. Then usually I think these things have like a little, I think it's like a rubber kind of grooved mat. You don't have to do that exactly. That could just be a value. This is great. It could just be a silhouette, but again, just refine. And that can just be a total silhouette. Same thing with this. Make sure that that's figured out. Maybe there's some grass that comes over here. See the other side of it. I don't know if this is a branch, but if it is, I like that. Mass some leaf shapes together. And then this, you could use this linear idea if you kind of ape this same thing where it's sort of a pen and inky kind of idea. Or, you could just do any type of graphic treatment you want to do there. And then what we're going to have to do, so we would just keep going, refine, refine, refine. Same thing with this here. This now gets I'd put this line all the way across, then I'd break up my window shapes. I'd have some of these characters looking out the window. I think this is a big mirror. If it is, I'd pull it out a little more. Again, this is going to have, actually I went too far with that window because we're going to need a driver's window, whatever that is. Again, I'd put some kind of, maybe I'll put the more modern tail lights on it. Same thing here. I'd probably have some characters looking out this window. I'm assuming this is like one of those vent things. If it is, then I do it sort of like that. This one actually has a door back here, so that door would still need to be there. Only now it's closed. You know, you could get a bird flying up here. And then these need to get refined. We don't want to have this hairy line thing. So just figure out, you know, a lot of times I do them. It just depends on how stylized I want to go. And again, a lot of these I would just do in, whatever you call that, silhouette. And then again, I'm going to draw all the way up because those can be knocked out. And then this I probably would knock out. So let's look at this real quick. You can see we're just starting to, I'd really have to work on him more. He's my first go-to. I mean, he could even have a hat on. I guess any of them could. The other thing is, like, this guy's really got a lot of weight around him, so I'd probably push where it goes into his tie. I'd probably really make it look like it's bulging out a little bit there. And then the other ear is back here somewhere. Take my eraser. A little bit of a... Now we have to figure out some kind of you know, frame language, and one of the thing, or an economical way of doing this. You know, one way is we could do sort of like we did with the, or we saw with the Mimi Pond one. Now I'm going to put this underneath here. Which to me here, let's go. Let's just drop a color into this, because we can just change it. So let's go through the color spectrum a little bit. And let's say that I decide I want to do, it's like an old orange they used to use in the printing process. Maybe I want to do something like that. Now, when I go back here now, and there's another thing I can do here. Let's try this real quick. Okay, so I pulled this into Illustrator real quick. And I put an overlay here. So what I'm going to do here is go to transparency and multiply. And then I'm going to lock that layer off for now. Work under here. And then I can start to go, maybe I can do something more interesting with my frames. Like, let's get rid of this line. Actually, let's keep the line. Let's fill it. And again, I'm just going to pick a random color. No, it's not a multiply. Now it's on multiply. Which is weird. I have the wrong layer on multiply. Hang on. No, I don't actually. Okay. There. Okay, now let's lock this off. And let's switch this to the same color, the line to the same color. And I'm going to go in here and get a rattier brush. If I can find my brush palette here. I'm going to load in some gouache brushes. Now you could do the same thing in Photoshop. You could just use, you know, natural edged brushes and create the same thing. Let's see if we can, how small we can go with that. .25. So I could lose, let's take this, you know, and there's different types of edges I could do here. I like that one better a little bit. Maybe even that one. So we can start to get this sort of gouache edge idea. They don't have to be one color. I'm just trying to think of ways to do this like economically and quickly. Let's go back here for a second. And what I'm doing here, once I have this rough that I think this is Ryan's that I've already created, I can start playing over it. And that's basically what I do. I just start playing over this stuff and trying to find ideas. Let's say maybe this one's cyan. Sometimes they'd use this sort of orange and cyan kind of thing, which I just always liked. And obviously I can tone down that too, that blue or whatever. Let's go smaller here. I'm going to take this back into Photoshop. Let's get rid of this for right now. I'm starting to get this. Maybe I just do different values of the same tone, maybe. So let's also look at this. Up here, there was a, I'm going to go to my eraser tool. There was a sun or something up here. I'm going to get a nicer brush. And I could also make that a perfect circle, but I'm going to make it a little more painterly. And then maybe I could come in here with different values of the same blue. Again, I'm just riffing on this. Maybe this is a little darker. And again, you can do this in watercolor. You can do this whatever you want. Or, you know, anything. And then maybe I start to sort of give these guys a little bit of something. maybe I'll just pull that down in like a kind of pen and inky idea maybe. Now I'm going to make a copy of this template layer, which is the original layer. Or actually I'll just leave it on my line. So I'm going to say, what if I take, I don't need line work here. I'm going to let that just live as a value. Then I can start doing kind of the same thing we were doing when we were doing, now you can also do this with color, it doesn't matter. I'm just trying, oops, I'm on the wrong layer. Maybe I could get a little of this. Here's another thing maybe. Let's try, I want to do an overlay on this. Not sure if this will work. Let's see. So I'm going to go Command, click. I'm going to select all that. I'm going to put a new layer here. And see if I can go select this color. Oh, quite a bit brighter. And I'm going to go and put a gradient on here. Yeah, that's a little better. But I don't want to cover up my other stuff. So, which I put on this layer, which was stupid. I should have had it on two different layers. But you get the point. I could go to a lighter value down here. I could also do it this way, since I'm on the same layer. And I kind of like this because I get to carve into things. And I'm just going to take a smudge brush. And I just want to get that horizon lightening up a little bit. I want to go back. I think I'm just going to start on another layer, which I should have been doing anyway. So let's grab this darker value. And then I want to carve these guys out a little more. Give them a little more personality. I don't know if I like that. I might just fill that. I'm going to take some of this lighter value down here and maybe start to lighten up this bus. And probably darken these a little bit, same value or same color, just darken the value and gray it out a little bit. Oh, that's probably too much. Reason being is I want to be able to pull some of that out. I'm going to take an eraser, kind of pull that out so it's starting to get a little bit of like it's reflecting into that. Darken it up in here. So now you could also, like I said, do this with color. I'm just playing around with value. Maybe this guy I'll get a little darker because he's got the sun backlighting him. Then I also have to make a decision, like how much line versus tone. Is it going to be all tone? Is it going to be all, combination of both, or is it going to be a little bit of both? I might come in here with a lighter value brush based on that, maybe. Because I can kind of do that thing like he's getting backlit, where they get that halo kind of around the edges. little darker value in here. So what I'm playing with obviously is a 1 value idea. His collar, maybe he's got a white collar on, because he's a white collar bear. It's too white. Let's go back to this value and a little lighter. And we're starting to get a little bit of personality here. I still would play with these trees a little more. I just got to find the right sort of silhouette. And then these could get lighter back here. I like to put, usually in the forest, I put one dead one that hangs at sort of an angle. I don't like it touching this other tree, but something like that. Maybe even a few lighter ones back there. And then I just keep going. So if I go here, let's go back over to Illustrator for a second. And here I'm just sort of working it out. Once I get here, I can go, okay, I can refine my drawing. He's starting to get a lot more refined, the bear. Let's go back to here. I want to grab this one now. Now my panel here. Same idea. So then I got to just decide, you know, maybe I do 2 color panels, sort of like that. And those will be my panels. Maybe they're not line frames. Maybe they're just, you know, panels. Or maybe I come in here. And again, you can do all this that I'm doing in Illustrator. You can do it in Photoshop pretty easily. But I might come here and then go, maybe my frame is between this. Or just more interesting brush shapes. I'm going to put this at an angle just because I like that. Maybe it's not that anymore. Maybe it is, you know, like a brush edge kind of thing. And it faded out on the side, but you get the point. Maybe that's my brush or my frame panels. Okay. Now this idea right here, and I can do this. I mean, if you want, there's a lot of ways to do this. Because it's sort of like almost like a Canson paper idea where you have one color and then you're just adding darks and lights to it. Okay. I wouldn't do it on Canson only because it just doesn't. Canson always just feels less like a finished illustration and more like sort of an idea. But you could do this watercolor. This could just be a watercolor wash over your pencil line. And then you could just come in here and just go darker values and punch everything with like a Prismacolor to lighten it up. I mean, you could do it like that. I mean, there's just so many different ways we could do it. Right now, actually, I'll go put, if I haven't already, I'll go put up the wet mount process because you could do it that way. But anyway, we'll continue talking about this in class. Let's turn this one back on. Different ways of handling this idea, okay?